Hi, everyone. So I'm Sara Entner, and we have Living Laughlin and also Black Mountain Valley Realty, and we're starting a new podcast. We want to get the leaders from Mohave Valley into this podcast room and give us some answers. And so we're starting this new show, and it's called Mohave Leadership Lounge. And today I have Rich Lettman as our first guest.
Excellent.
And he is District 2 Supervisor.
Correct.
And so we're going
Mohave
to...
County.
For Mohave County. So we are going to grind Rich today with crazy questions.
Go for it. I'm ready.
So super excited. So I wanted to start off with tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Okay. So for those that missed the campaign. Okay. So, my background is I'm 74 years old, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't look a day over 71,
60.
Right? 60?
Oh my gosh, you got yeah.
That's because I hike and I exercise and, meditate a little bit,
Oh.
that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'm into taking care of myself as best I can. But I've been in the Valley here in Bullhead City since 2010 or 11. I can't even remember anymore. And prior to that, I had a 50-plus year experience in business. Okay. I grew up in Southern California. Did my undergrad work at Brigham Young, class of 1972.
Wow.
Neither one of you were even born. Okay, then. Yeah.
71.
Okay. So you were a 1-year-old when I got my bachelor's degree in finance.
Wow.
And then I went to work in the Bay Area for a company that was eventually acquired by Macy's. Okay. And I stayed there for, 15, 16 years. And in the early 90s, moved down to Boca Raton, Florida, where I began my almost 20-year career with Office Depot Incorporated.
Oh, wow.
And that included 2 overseas stints, one in Leicester, England, working for our international division, and another one in Venlo, the Netherlands, which is near Dusseldorf, Germany.
Wow.
So I had a background in finance, credit, accounts receivables, collection, and I was working as a global credit director over there. I retired from Office Depot in 2009. That lasted 6 months.
I was going to say, not even a year.
I got easily bored, single guy and the dog, okay? And got easily bored and took about a 14-month consulting assignment from Xerox Corporation over in Manila in the Philippines. And
you are well-traveled.
Yeah, I get around a lot, okay?
That's what I hear.
Yeah, so
just kidding.
I have a pretty varied background in business. These are all Fortune 500 companies. And so my background is in larger businesses, understanding the roles of credit, collections, finance. That's the background. So I'm kind of a numbers guy to a certain extent. Not overly analytical, but I think statistics and numbers can tell us a lot of things, a lot of direction and how to head. So I came anyway. After the Xerox assignment was over, I did move here to Bullhead City. I had a stepbrother and his family in the area. And in 2011, I started up my own business, which was a quake cleaning and franchise business. That went on for 11, 12 years. And 2 years ago, I sold that business to a family down in Lake Havasu. Got on the Bullhead City Council after that. And then last year ran for county supervisor to replace Hildy Angus. Won that election in the Republican primary. There was no Democrat running in the general election. So the win in the primary was kind of like an automatic win in the general election. And the good news is I had all that time, Sara, between the primary and taking office in the first week of January to really meet with county employees. I had something close to 30 meetings, okay, with everybody from judges to sheriffs to people in the HR department, animal control, planning and zoning, to really learn my way around and start really going through the documents and understanding what the issues were, how we can make Mohave County better, restore this county to financial stability. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about that today.
And actually, I just want to take one little step back because then we're going to get into that meaty stuff. But so you're in business abroad. I mean, you have all this amazing experience with business. what made you get into the city council? Like, what made you?
Council member Norman Brummett had passed away.
Okay.
And there was an opening for an appointment. And I thought I would be good. And several people had said, you're good, okay? Understanding, listening, developing plans to solve problems, making people excel at what they do. Those are things I like to do.
Oh.
And I decided to apply for the city council, and I was appointed. And I made a commitment during the appointment that I would not use that as a way to run for city council when the term was up, which was about 17 months, I think, after I was appointed. And instead, this opening came up for the county supervisor position. I thought, that's good for me. I can help the county on this one, and I have a point of view that's very fiscally conservative. Okay, and let's see what will happen. And that was a tough race.
So it's like you just are jazzed up about like helping.
Yeah, I like to stay active. I don't want to be. I've retired twice already, and now
Let's stop trying that.
Yeah, now I have this third job, and we'll see how long this goes. I absolutely enjoy what I'm doing right now. I am jazzed about it.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by an excellent staff. The county employees, I think, are good. I'm part of a board of supervisors that is loaded with talent. We have 5 members of the board. Imagine this, 2 ex-state senators, okay? Mm-hmm. Imagine all of the experience, the breadth of knowledge they bring, the understanding how Phoenix works, the state, because the county is a subdivision of the state. So, you have Supervisor Sonny Borelli, Supervisor Ron Gould, who have these backgrounds. They bring strong points of view. Those 2 are terrific, okay? We don't always agree, but they're terrific. They're passionate about what they believe in, and I like that. You have Travis Lingenfelder up there, who obviously is from almost a founding family in Kingman, okay? Yeah. He has excellent background in small business, economic development. Supervisor Don Martin, representing more of the rural area of the county, a man who has been here possibly longer than any member of the board in the county. And he brings just a really good perspective, okay, on rural, on understanding what areas like Golden Valley want and need. And I respect all 4 of them terrifically. Your board of supervisors is loaded with talent. Again, we don't all agree. Yeah.
You bring this great business background.
I think I have a business background, which is a different perspective than the other 4. Mm-hmm. But they all have, you take somebody like Supervisor Gould, clearly has a background in small business, not just his legislative experience down in Phoenix. He understands, along with Supervisor Borelli and Lingenfelder and Don Martin, that, these small businesses are critical to the running of this county. We have to provide an environment where they are allowed to thrive, that they're not over-regulated, they're not overtaxed, okay? And,
So
you got a good board.
We have this great list of questions, but this conversation's probably not going to stick to the questions too much. So statistically, Mohave County always ends up on the bottom of the barrel. Like
in what way?
From median income, from the housing, from crime statistics.
Okay.
Like there's in Arizona, it's like one of the lower income.
Yeah, I won't use it poorest county because we're not by any means.
No, but it. And the reason why I say that is because you have all this talent in the supervisor board. Mm-hmm. How are we going to change that? Like what are the things that are happening?
I think we need to recognize
education is another one.
Yeah, what we have. Okay, we are rural and we're mid-sized now. So we have 5 supervisors. We're going to pass the 250,000 mark in population next couple of years, possibly. So there's accelerated growth going on here. But
For sure.
this is what we're dealing with. So in the area on the Arizona side of the river, here in the Colorado River Valley, we'll talk about that designator in a minute. From bridge to bridge, we have somewhere around 17,000 veterans, spouses, and family members. That is huge. Okay, we have
That is amazing.
yeah, we have so we have an older population. The demographic is older.
Yes.
I wouldn't call it lower income because it's not, but we certainly have a higher than average, okay, poverty level in the area.
Yes,
District
thank
2
you.
especially,
Thank
okay,
you. Yeah.
where I'm looking at almost 1 out of every 5, okay, of the people who live in my district, you know, are at or close or slightly below that poverty level, okay? And that, you know, those are things we take into consideration as we make
Yes.
decisions. The good news for those people in District 2 is that they're inside Bullhead City. So, you know, a city which is doing extremely well, okay, fiscally and in terms of quality of life issues, helping out. I'll give you a great example, and talking about outreach to lower incomes, single seniors, you know, disabled veterans. We have just dedicated 2 weeks ago this new senior enrichment center, okay, next to City Hall, and you know, everybody needs to go over and see this. I took my Rotary Club over there yesterday for a lunch and a tour of the building, and this is a great example of how local government, okay,
Yeah.
albeit with some help from state and feds, but how local government is tackling a problem about food insecurity,
Yeah.
the ability for people to have meals, breakfast and lunch in this case, an activity center, a place where they can congregate, that they can have social interaction with other seniors, and understanding that some of the seniors in that building have needs, okay? Others are there to help the people with needs. It's a terrific example. And this is why, if you're living inside District 2 or you're living inside Bullhead City, you got a really good head start of your neighbors in the unincorporated areas in terms of availability of services to help you, whether it's parks, you know.
Is that just for Bullhead City then? That's
The senior center?
Yeah.
It's primarily for Bullhead City. I'd have to look at that. Okay. I'm not quite sure. I think I've seen some people in there from Fort Mohave, which, you know, I don't know what the rules are around it. I can't
imagine they wouldn't open their arms.
Yeah. I mean, the Senior Enrichment Center is so good, so needed. It is fulfilling a need for people who are at risk. Okay, whether it's emotionally, mentally, physically, in terms of their ability to access food, okay, and care, whether they're veterans who need assistance. Terrific facility. And this quality of life issue in Bullhead City just gets better. Yeah, a couple of problems like traffic and that kind of stuff hanging out there, but nevertheless, this is a great example. If you're in District 2, okay, in Bullhead City, you got a head start, okay, as opposed to other areas of the county like that. And we're not saying the other areas of the county aren't any good. They're great. We have excellent people down here, okay, in Fort Mohave and Mohave Valley. But it just really is important to have access to these kind of services. The county has limited financial ability. You know, we're going to address that over the next 2 years. And the cities don't. They have a sales tax. Mohave County is the only county out of 15 in the state of Arizona without a county-wide sales tax. The impact on our ability to provide services as a county is dramatic. It's big. And we're going to have Sheriff Schuster, by the way. I've asked him to come see us on Monday to tell us about how many more additional sheriff's deputies he need. By the way, they're part of their service area is right here in Fort Mohave and Mohave Valley. And I'm telling you right now, there is a need for additional sheriff's deputies in this area, all across the unincorporated areas of the county. You know, we need more people in the detention centers, more jailers, more bailiffs, more judges. We need all these things. We're going to have to find a short-term and a long-term solution to financing this. But the good news is if you're in one of the 4 cities in the county, you know, you're in a better place, okay, in terms of the availability of these kinds of services. We just gotta, you know, do what we can with the county and make sure we are providing the services that residents in unincorporated areas need.
Yeah.
And we can do that. We're smart people.
Yeah.
We know how to get this done. And you've got, again, 5 supervisors who understand and county staff who understand the issues. We get it. We don't have all the money we'd like to have, but I think we know how to squeeze, all these dollars that are available to us and get the maximum level of services, okay, and the things that people need.
And services take money. I mean, that's all there is
Sure.
to it. So the people who live in Mohave County have to understand that at some point in time there has to be some kind of taxes. So,
Well,
like
yeah,
sales taxes, that seems like a no-brainer
we're
to me.
primarily financed by property tax, to a lesser extent by shared revenue from the state and the feds a little bit, and by county fees. But when you don't have a countywide sales tax, and that was voted on in the last session by the old Board of Supervisors, and it requires a unanimous vote, and it was a 4-1 vote, so it failed. And that is the world we exist in, and we will operate in that world. I will operate in that world, and we will maximize, the use of a red pen and a green pen, which I talked about in the campaign. The red pen is how you get out and cut. And I've spent a lot of time on this budget, and we're going to have workshops coming up next month, and there's always room for better, more efficient services, delivery of services, for automation, the use of software, these kind of things. There's always room to find savings. I mean, this was one of the worst things that ever happened at Office Depot was when I was there, or at Macy's. And, here comes in the budget, and, your boss has taken a yellow highlighter out or put Post-it notes on the pages that are of concern to him or her. And, you got out the red pen and you started cutting. But there's also this thing called the green pen, and that's where you produce revenue. That's called property tax, shared revenue from the state and the feds, HERF, highway funds. Sales tax is a part of the green pen, and so it's a combination of these two things, how you utilize the green pen where you can to increase revenues. That's done through the property tax. The primary method there is the continued expansion, okay, of the property tax base without raising the property tax rate, okay? This is a very important distinction. That's why I'm a very pro-growth, pro-development supervisor. Yeah. I ran on that as a campaign. I want us to build things. So I need more rooftops. I need more businesses. I need more infrastructure. I need more well-paying jobs. So your realtors, that should be of interest to you.
We love it.
So I love it too, because when we build more houses, okay, I get to collect more property tax. The school gets it. The fire district gets it. The library gets it. And that right now is the primary way we finance county government around here, and those special districts, by the way.
And there's still a lot of people coming here. I mean, they're moving from the Midwest. They're moving from California. They're moving now a lot from Oregon, Washington, Wyoming. I mean, we're seeing that as realtors.
I'll give you an idea, and I know we're straying off course here a little bit.
No, this is good.
There's no
course.
I like to talk. Okay. When you look at the projected growth arc, okay, of the, let's take the 3 incorporated cities, okay? We'll leave out the town of Colorado City. They're in a world of their own up there, okay? And I'm talking economic development population. And you take a look at the growth arc. Right now, our largest city in the county, I believe, is Lake Havasu City, followed by Lake Havasu is around mid-50s, 56, 54, something like that. 1,000. You look at Bullhead sitting, they've probably already crossed 43. They're headed for 44,000. And then you have Kingman, which is in the high 30s, approaching the low 40s. When you look at the growth arc over the next 10 years, so we had a study from ADOT, it might have been pre-pandemic, but I don't think the assumptions have changed a whole lot on future land use. You look at the growth arc for Kingman is very flat. Okay, there's some increase. They're going to add more homes in that area, mainly because of the Rancho Santa Fe interchange development on I-40. The future I-11, I-40 interchange. Replacing that area around Beale Street and all that. It's certainly going to get growth out of that. do they have a groundwater issue that may or may not limit their growth? Depends who you talk to. But this is not what I would call a high arc. Okay, you look at Lake Havasu City; they only have 10% of their land left for development. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you thought Kingman's growth arc was relatively low, Lake Havasu's is possibly lower, and then you get into the issues down there of affordable housing, availability for. It just goes on and on. They're kind of far away from I-40 in terms of that. So it limits the population growth. And then you look at Bullhead City.
We got lots of land.
Yeah, lots of land, lots of development opportunity. The major constrictor is going to be transportation, traffic. Yep. Availability of power is there. You have lots of land, and sometime in the mid-2030s, Bullhead City will overtake Lake Havasu City as the most populous area in the county. And then when you add in what's going to happen in Fort Mohave, and to a lesser extent Mohave Valley. Mohave Valley is different. You got a lot of tribal land.
Yes.
You got all this stuff going on. When you look at the combination of Bullhead City and Fort Mohave, we are talking well over 100,000 people at some point in the late 2030s. Okay. Now, that may not impress somebody.
I don't even think this is going to be that long.
Yeah.
I mean, the way people are coming in.
And even Mohave Valley is going to get its share, and Golden Shores will get a little bit of this. The two primary growth areas, there is no question in the county, outside of North Canyon, which is Littlefield, Colorado City, Beaver Dam, scenic up there on the Arizona Strip. They're in a very, very interesting situation. But outside of that, it's Bullhead City and Fort Mohave. And so the basic message of that study was this. The population trend for Mohave County is it's moving to the river. Okay. The river communities, okay, are the benefactors of growth. You layer in the potential for growth in Laughlin and in Needles. Okay, we are looking, okay, at a Colorado River Valley that will have somewhere north of 150,000 people, okay, sometime in the 2030s. We need to get ready for that. Yeah. That requires regional preparation, regional planning. I'm a huge advocate of planning and regional, but it is going to be fascinating.
The infrastructure is what we're not keeping up.
Yeah, that's why I ran for your board of supervisors, by the way. I have a vision of what I think this valley should look like. Okay, it's not always the right vision. Not everybody agrees with it.
Tell us.
Yeah, I see a vision where we have a cohesive community, both sides of the river, 3 states, 3 counties. We may have at some point, in the 2030s, a 5th city in the county, where I think we're sitting in it right now. Okay. I see a potential for looking at encouraging the people of Fort Mohave to look at self-incorporation. It's a long, hard process. It's not something you can do easily. It requires years of work. My guess is right now, if some community group said, we'd like to start looking at incorporation, and there is no community group doing this right now, it's 5 to 7 years away.
Really?
It's going to take that long to get through the process.
We got to start now.
Well, not everybody wants to incorporate down here. And then you got questions, and really the primary...
But our population is just such that we need some government.
If you want the 5 supervisors to act as your city council, I live just a little bit off of Corwin Road, or Corwin Avenue. And, you got supervisor who lives in Yucca. You have another one down in Lake Havasu City, 2 who live up in Kingman. That's your city council, folks. And right now, your decisions are made 70 miles away in Kingman, Arizona. So, I would certainly be looking at the big holdback on Fort Mohave. Okay, clearly is they do not have the economic base still, to support a sales tax, which would be needed to operate a city.
Got you.
It's more than just shared funds, from the state and the Fed. It's that sales tax is the key driver. That is what is fueling the growth in Bullhead City, Kingman, and Lake Havasu. All 3 cities are doing extremely well fiscally. It's because they have a sales tax. And right now, the sales tax base, you basically got a Walmart here.
Right.
You need at least one more big box,
Okay.
And the only other way you could supplement that would be with a city property tax, and no one's going for that.
Mhm.
I don't go for that.
Right.
Okay. I don't think that's feasible. And then if you ever really started delving into should we self-incorporate this kind of stuff, you'd have to ask yourself the big question, which is what do you do with this area below boundary cone, okay, which we call Fort Mohave Valley.
Right.
That's a real interesting one. If you want to, we can play around on this one. You could sit there and say Mohave Valley has potential to become a town as opposed to a city. Township versus city, there's some nuances between the two. A lot of it has to do with law enforcement. Towns sometimes use sheriff still. A lot of nuances about it. Towns are generally smaller, okay? Like Colorado City is technically a town. There is no retail base down in Mohave Valley, okay?
No.
The generators of any sales tax potential are sitting on tribal land,
right?
Okay, which makes the whole issue of Mohave Valley self-incorporation probably immediately off the table, because if you're a developer and you realize that this town is coming and you're thinking of putting a business or a building or down there, you're going to ask yourself, do I want to be part of the town where there's a potential property tax? Because that's the only way Mohave Valley could finance things. Or should I cut a deal with the Fort Mohave Indian tribe, okay, and go on their land, okay, which doesn't have property taxes and school taxes and all that kind of stuff. And the tribe is aggressive. They are well run. Their leadership is good. That is a strong leadership on that council. I respect Chairman Williams and the role him and the elders of that tribe have done. They're good. Okay. And I'm sure anybody coming over there that has a land use that's compatible with what the tribe views as appropriate use of their lands would get a very fair hearing in front of the Fort Mohave Indian Tribal Council. I think they would, and I would go that route instead of going on a piece of land that's subject to property tax.
Are we in a little bit of a pickle with water too? Like, how much can we expand?
Well, that's a good question, and I defer. Water is one of the issues that I kind of get pardon the pun, getting my feet wet. We have 3 members of the board, led by Chairman Lingenfelter, who clearly have a background in water, understand water coming out of the Colorado River versus water coming out of wells and groundwater issues and AMAs and INAs and all this stuff going on up in Kingman and Golden Valley and out by Wickiup, this kind of stuff. These are 2 very separate issues: water out of the river versus water out of groundwater sources, which is primarily away from the river. My sense is, at least under the old compact, which is going to expire in the next year or 2, is that certainly MVIDD down here, the Fort Mohave Indian tribe, and Bullhead City have more than enough allotment to river water for what we need. Okay, there's plenty to fuel growth. The allocations that are in the current contract, which is going to expire in the next year or 2, I believe are more than set for growth in this area. Even Laughlin has enough access, and we know Needles does. Okay, so there's plenty here, mainly because these are cities on the river, okay, who have a higher priority access. The tribe has extremely good access to water,
right?
Because let's face it, they were here first,
right?
Okay, and they have tribal compacts, treaties with the federal government, all up and down the river. These tribes, they have great access to water, and of course, there's an argument always there that we don't always agree with their use of water, mainly towards agriculture. That's very water consumptive. I understand that. It's their water. Okay, it's their land, and they have first tag on that water.
So right now, we have to check. So when we're selling a piece of land, property, we check to see if there's a water allocation. In many instances, there's not a water allocation.
Is it dependent on a well?
It can be, but according to MVIDD, if there's no water allocation, then if that person wants to build, they need at least a third of an acre foot to support
Mhm.
that. And they have to buy that from one of the selling resources. So there are farmers, for the most part, that are selling their water allocations.
There's one or two down here we're aware of,
that are selling their water allocations to people who do not have a water allocation. Now, we found out through the Arizona statute that there's a specific statute that protects people from a well. Anybody who owns land can have access to water.
Okay.
And it's got to be like, I think, no more than 30 gallons a day or something like that. There's some regulation around it, but I had no idea that doesn't matter if you have a water allocation or not. If you own land, according to the statute, you can dig a well. And
well, last time I checked, digging a well is not cheap.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
But we didn't even know that. So we were discouraging people from buying land if they couldn't get a water allocation. And lo and behold, we really shouldn't have been doing that. We found out a whole lot from Brown drilling since then. But so my question to that is, I mean, how does that impact the future? The water allocation it's kind of tough.
Yeah, there's a state of limbo around all of this because, again, we're going, the feds are going to impose some kind of new water regulations around these 7 states that have access. They're part of the Colorado River, compact, from 1922 or 27, whatever it was. Like that thing's expiring. It's been extended, and the extensions are expiring. And the upper basin states and the lower basin states had better figure out a way to do it themselves, because if they don't, our friends at the federal government, and I don't care who's sitting in Washington at this point in time, water tends to be a very bipartisan issue, thankfully. Okay, but I'm not, and we don't want to see the federal government imposing their solution. Okay, to this. But if these 7 states can't come to an agreement, that's potentially what could happen in terms of river water. And the 7 states are Colorado. Well, we have California, Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. Okay, and then you've got Colorado, Utah, a little bit of Wyoming, I think, in there. Yeah. So it's those 7 states that form the Colorado River Basin, part of the compact. Obviously, the big players in this are Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and California. So, and California, Arizona, Nevada comprise the lower basin states. The other 4 are the upper basin states. This is a very precious commodity. We probably overtaxed it. We just assumed that we're going to have all these rainy years, and Mother Nature had a different idea, in store, and we have to act. I think people around here in this area, by the way, all up and down this valley, understand the need to conserve water. Oh yeah. You don't see a lot of water wasting either side of the river. No, not at all.
Trees that require a lot
and
of
what
water.
Little grass we do see, more people are pulling that out. I'm even replacing plants now with metal plants, and I actually kind of like them better.
Yeah.
And so we teach this in our schools around here, water conservation. These children, high school students, clearly understand the need to take care of this very precious resource running down the middle of this valley. Okay?
But do you think that will impact our ability to continue to grow the population though?
It might, but I think in the long term, no. Okay, again, we have a lot of access, a lot of allocation. Now, could our friends down in Maricopa and Pima, pull one on us? That's possible. Where they take more of the water, via the state of Arizona. All things are possible.
Yeah.
And we have to be on the lookout. And, we've got folks in the Capitol representing us. We have people here in the Mohave Valley, or Mohave County, not water district, it's water board, I think it is. I forget. Who are very, very good at this. People like Jamie Kelly, who represents us legally. She absolutely knows what she's doing. I follow her counsel, in this particular area. We've got lobbyists representing Mohave County that look out for us on water issues. It is a big unknown. There's no doubt about it. My sense is, that going forward, water availability may slow growth, but it's not going to stop it.
Right. Okay.
Just short of absolutely it goes dry or something,
Yeah.
which I don't see happening.
No.
I don't. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking out the window here.
As it's raining.
Yeah, I'm not going to say this is typical. I wish we had more of this on occasion, but there is bits and pieces of this, and conservation is a huge factor. If I was worried about water availability, the people I'd be looking at are on the other side of this river, not the ones in Nevada. Okay, the ones in California, which a lot of that water goes into, and you got big ag over there in Imperial Valley,
yeah,
Salton Sea area,
Yeah.
in Coachella, all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that if we're going to pull back somewhere, it's going to be on agriculture in those areas. Arizona has already fallowed lots of acreage, mainly in Pinal County, down that way, away from the use of water coming through the Central Arizona Project.
Yeah.
We're wandering off, way off.
No, it's totally good. Like,
Yeah.
I think people really are concerned about how are we going to raise the money, and it is primarily by growing, and how are we going to grow if we don't have water? I mean, all of it ties together.
Yeah.
So it's all really important.
I wish we had more local control over water. It's one of those issues that we don't. Okay.
Yeah.
We are subject to the whims and legislation coming out of Washington and Phoenix and Sacramento
Yeah.
and Carson City.
Yeah.
This is how this operates. Because I'm a big guy, and you devolve decision making down to as low a level as you can get, because I know who provides the best services in the end run, and it's the local governments.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So you said that you did a bunch of interviews and meetings before you actually took office. So what are the things that surprised you?
I think people feel that the county's this is coming from staff, okay, in the meetings, and from the larger public to a lesser extent during the campaign, concern about the funding ability of the county.
Yes, for sure.
This is big, especially in the law enforcement and courts arena. We're sitting at 244,000 somewhere, give or take 1,000 on that one. Our judge, Steve Moss, came and talked to the Board of Supervisors. I asked him to come on in about 6 weeks ago and shared with us a study that said this county is underfunded by 3 superior court judges, which means 3 circuits. Okay. Now, we just recently added the 8th circuit, okay, partially funded by the county, partially funded by the state. And you sense that we have a county organization that does its best not to waste money, to utilize the assets, the people resources it has in the best way possible. The problem I have is the turnover rate in the county. Take Sheriff's Department, be a great example, okay? Where prior to a series of raises that were given by the old board, thank you to the old board for it, and we have an excellent sheriff who clearly understands the needs for additional staffing, additional rates of pay, because he knows if we don't do it, we get poached. Okay, so and this doesn't go on just in the Sheriff's Department. So you become a deputy sheriff in Mohave County, and you turn around and you see those rates of pay down in Lake Havasu City, or the ultimate, you look over the river at Clark County, and you see what Las Vegas Metro and Clark County Sheriff is paying. Thank you for the training in Mohave County. I'm moving. The family and I are moving to Henderson. Yeah. Okay, that's a big problem. Same thing's going on in other departments. It could be as simple as HR. Okay, and by the way, I want to make clear, we are loaded with dedicated, talented people in our county organization. They're good. But there's some people that aren't always good. You're going to find them in every organization. Yeah. But by and large, the employees of this county, I don't care if they're working on roads, they're a deputy sheriff, if they are in public health, it doesn't matter to me. They get the message. They understand. They have good leadership. They get the job done on the scarce resources that they have. Yeah. Probably the overwhelming message is these resources are too scarce. Okay, we need more. We need more, either more staffing, We need more money, whatever it's going to be, okay, to provide the appropriate level of services. Again, you're going to hear much more about this on Monday from the sheriff himself. Okay, he's first up. He's the first presentation. You're going to hear a lot about this. I don't think everybody's going to like what they hear, okay, because he is understaffed, okay, and he has to raise his rates of pay, okay, to be competitive with Bullhead City and Lake Havasu PD, okay, and
At least
try and be competitive with Clark County, okay, and by the way, San Bernardino County, even though they don't have all the openings that Clark County does. You're going to hear this, and this was a common message, okay, from the meetings I sat in on, which was, I have good people, but I've become a training ground for these good people.
I could totally see that happening.
They come into my department. I pay them what I can afford to pay them. They stick around for 2 to 3 years, and then they are gone either into private sector or into other governmental agencies. The only good news there is they won't be going to the federal government because the federal government's cutting back. In fact, we may end up seeing some availability of qualified staffers for government positions coming out of the federal government. I can tell you, they're not going to get the deal from this county that they were getting from the feds. Okay, but nevertheless, this turnover is awful. Tough. We have a turnover rate last fiscal year. I don't have an exact number on me. I think it's around 27%. Might be closer to 30%. So
wow,
imagine this. Okay,
is that every year?
Yeah, no, not necessarily, but it's high. Imagine this: if I were to, back in 2009, before I retired from Office Depot, if I'd walked in to a performance evaluation on myself conducted by my boss, who would be a senior vice president. And you're evaluated on a number of things, and one of them is employee turnover. And if he'd gone in there and said, Rich, you have an employee turnover of 10% in your department,
that would be huge.
Yeah, you might want to start looking for another job or another career, because turnover is cancerous to an organization.
Yes.
Not only do I lose experienced people, Sarah, I lose the people I'm going to end up replacing them with generally are higher paid, might require a relocation package, and they certainly don't have the experience, much less the amount of time it takes to learn this 1,700 member organization called Mohave County. Okay, turnover is bad. It's expensive. We spend, I don't know what the number is. I am confident it is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of loss of productivity and
for sure,
and sheer cost. Okay, just straight dollars going out. Paying people to relocate, paying higher rates of pay, whatever it's going to be. That's a problem. Turnover is probably the single biggest thing I heard about, which is if you want to have a first-class organization, staffed by people who are not going to leave after 2 to 3 years, you better find some money. Okay,
and we're not talking about just the sheriff's department. This is county.
This is county finance, HR, public health, environmental health, planning and zoning, all of it.
And it's primarily money and benefits. I mean, they leave for money and benefits.
Yes. Okay, at least on the retirement side, you're forced to join the Arizona State retirement system, which is a 12.5% deduction out of your pay, by the way, matched by 100% by the county. That's a state mandated contribution. So at least you got a fighting chance on the retirement piece. But most people in their mid-20s, early 30s, they're not real focused on the Arizona State retirement system. In fact, they'd probably like to have that money to either put it in a 401k themselves or an IRA, or just go out and spend it, or put it in a savings account. Who knows? Or buy crypto with it. I don't know.
Crypto.
Whatever you want like that. But yeah, it's a problem. That probably was the single biggest overwhelming message. Turnover is killing us.
And so are you guys working on that? I mean,
we're going to find out on April 16th. Okay. So we're going to have our first big budget workshop. And, the chief financial officer and the county manager. They are both excellent. They are going to be coming to see us, individual supervisors, prior to that and kind of lay out what this is looking like in terms of the budget. And
is that open to the public? That's open to the public?
On April 16th?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
and can you zoom in? Are you able to?
Yeah, it'll be broadcast, I'm confident, on, I think we use YouTube and the county site itself. You can see the video, on the Board of Supervisors meeting portal, something like that. But I believe you can also pick it up on YouTube.
Getting more people involved, like even watching, hearing, listening, like as I think that there just isn't enough people that are aware of what the problems are.
Yeah.
You know, how do we get more people involved?
I can tell you this: a lot of people are involved. That is one thing about this county is that
a
lot of passionate people who have points of view that I don't always agree with, but nevertheless they're involved. And there are people who criticize me. The behavior sometimes at Board of Supervisors is unfortunate, but you got to respect those people too, okay? That they come down there and they're willing to say what's on their mind. I wish they would say it sometimes a little differently, but that's part of this style of government, which is, politicians are subject to criticism. Sometimes I just wish it wasn't so personal. That's all. But no, they have a part to play. Everybody has a part to play, and there is good participation in things.
And that was one of my questions, was community engagement, because I've been to a few meetings, mostly water meetings, and it's like the same people are there.
Yeah, so, I would agree with that. So the only way I get around it is I think I try to be almost everywhere.
Yeah.
I know that sounds, and I don't mean to try and boast myself or anything, but I try to get into so many meetings, so many organizations.
Yeah.
I go speak to Rotary. I go speak to Kiwanis. I go,
awesome.
I'm in a public health hearing. Tonight I'm going to be at St. Margaret Mary's Church for the fish fry for Lent, and I'm not even Catholic. Okay.
They got good fish though.
They do. And by the way, if you do celebrate Lent, it starts tonight at 4:00, goes to 7:00 up at St. Margaret Mary's. I try to go up there every year. I try to be places where I can meet people and listen. I even have people drop into the office.
That's awesome.
So I try and be as many places as I can, okay? And I think that's important to get out there. I do not want to be insulated in my office. That's not where I belong. I belong looking at projects, talking to people, encouraging development, understanding people's needs. Like right now, my office is involved in a veterans outreach project. I'll have you come on up sometime.
Yeah.
We can do an on-site, a little tape, and I'll show you what we're doing in terms of trying to take a very consolidated approach to delivering veteran services to veterans on both sides of the river here in this valley. Okay, it's extensive. It's a huge project. It's the one thing I heard more about, not from the county staff, but from the electorate, which was, is there anything you can do about the delivery of veteran services and veterans outreach? Because the county doesn't have that much role in veterans outreach. We do in some. We're working on this. And I'm coming back with some ideas. You'll see them in the next 2 to 3 months. You're welcome to come on down to the office. We'll show you the big boards that we're on. We're having committee meetings with you can't believe, Sarah, how many groups in this area somehow fit into what I would call the veterans nexus. They touch a veteran in some way.
Yeah.
It could be homeless, it could be housing, it could be educational outreach. It could be delivery of medical services. It could be medical transportation. It could be just getting your basic veteran services, pulling your records, whatever it is. We have such a giving community here. Okay. The problem is it's uncoordinated. And we're trying to form an umbrella organization that can be a clearinghouse to direct people in the right ways to eliminate duplicate services where possible. We're not the VA, but my office can help facilitate a smoother delivery of veterans outreach. I know some of the other supervisors are working on similar efforts.
We have a lot of vets.
17,000 up and down the valley. Okay.
That is
Come
a
on
lot.
back. Let's do a redo of this in about 2 months, and we'll have a lot to report to you. Okay. You can come up to the office for that one. Okay. What else is on your mind?
I want to know, you said you have a board and it's your priority. Can you tell?
Yeah, it's called
tell us
D2
about that.
Priorities. I'm looking at it right now. I forgot to bring, I'd written it down. Excuse me. I had written it down and I forgot to bring what I wrote down with me. So Bonnie Wright in the office just took a picture of it. Okay.
I love it.
And it's called District 2 Priorities. And I'll just tell you what the number one priority is right now, and that is the 25-26 fiscal budget, effective July 1st.
We don't have enough money.
Preliminary data, we're looking at a deficit. I don't know how big. It'll be nothing like this so-called 18 million, which really wasn't 18 million last year. And, that's water under the bridge. That's obviously a huge priority. We're looking at zero-based budgeting. This is something that Supervisor Gould and myself have advocated. We tried to push that through at the last meeting for one of the departments. That was turned down on a 2-3 vote, mainly because...
What does zero-based budgeting mean?
Zero-based budgeting is something we used at Office Depot, and many corporations and many small businesses do it. Zero-based budgeting says the old way of doing a budget is use it or lose it.
Right.
Okay, so, we've got money left in our, I don't know, training budget for some department. Get some training in here, because if we don't use this money, it won't be in next year's budget, and we need money in next year's budget. That's the old-fashioned way. Right. Zero-based budgeting says we don't really care what you did this year. Everybody starts at zero, and you justify why you need people, resources, how you're going to deliver services, and is it really important? And when people get into zero-based budgeting, all of a sudden, now, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of institutional resistance to zero-based budgeting. People do not like it because it represents change. And I'm not characterizing the county that way, but it's hard. Okay, ZBB is hard. It's difficult to implement. You just can't snap your fingers and say, hey, you know what, next year we're going to do zero-based budgeting. You start with a small area, which is what Supervisor Gould and I attempted last time, an area of an area. It failed, mainly because the budget process was so far along. We're having workshops on April 16th. The majority opinion of the board was that calendar, if you had done this 4 months ago, it would make sense. So actually, Supervisor Gould has a new issue. He has one small department with 2 employees on the agenda for Monday, where he's going to try ZBB again. And I'm sure he'll have my vote, depending on how this discussion goes. But that's a big one. And then
that's awesome. That's virtually unheard of in the government anywhere.
There's some that do it, okay, but
really,
yeah. But again, I'm not interested in there are some that do it. I want to do it because I think it's the right thing to do.
I love that,
and I think the taxpayers have a right to this.
Definitely.
Yeah. So really, I think the board's kind of on board. The issue is the timing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard. It is definitely hard.
Zero-based budgeting. You almost have to have an outside consultant in there just to teach you how to do it. So it's not easy. These next ones are, I have made this so clear. I want more deputy sheriffs. I want more prosecutors in the county attorney's office. I want more judges. I need more bailiffs. I need more court recorders. I need more people in the detention centers. I need more people in the jail. By the way, I need more courtrooms. Okay, I need more people in the public defender's office. You can kind of tell what area I'm talking about here. It's basically anybody that touches law enforcement and courts. Okay, so jail, cars, deputy sheriffs, people, judges. We're a growing county and we are understaffed in these areas. And I am concerned about the escalation, number one, of juvenile crime in this county.
Yeah.
Okay. We better get ourselves ready. I'm not going to call it a tsunami or a hurricane. That's too dramatic. That would be overstating it. I am telling you, the numbers are arcing up. I had a meeting with the 7 Superior Court judges before I was sworn in, one of those 30 meetings we talked about. And it is clear, okay, they have concerns about staffing, about workload. The county attorney needs more prosecutors. The public defender needs more. We have huge needs. These are giant priorities. Okay. The other things on the list, the medical examiner, and I'm going to talk about that. We got a whole. Just tune in on Monday where this thing just continues to be. I don't get it. It's as I've called it. Yeah, it's a hot potato, and it's a solution in search of a problem. But we'll talk more about that on Monday. One of my priorities is Davis Camp. That's a long story. That is a county-owned camp at the far end up by the dam. There needs a lot of work. We've got to find sources to.
That's county-owned?
Yes, Davis Camp is.
Had no idea. I thought that was privately owned. Wow. Okay.
No, it's county-owned. And right now, Bullhead City has got their community park directly below it, several miles long now. And I don't know.
Yes.
I'm just telling you right now. Davis Camp has a competitor on the other side of the Laughlin Bridge, downstream, and we got to get this park up to speed, and it needs to generate more cash flow. We don't do that by raising fees. We do that by adding more amenities, tiny houses or for more RV spaces.
Awesome.
We need to rehabilitate. Well, this is a long-term goal. We kind of want to look at turning that Davis Camp into a bit of a cultural arts hub for the Valley. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, but it's kind of a vision. We're going to work on that in the second half of the year. Right now, budgets and deputies are the big deal right now.
Gotcha.
We had on the priority list the whole subject. And you're going to see me stepping on the pedal on this one in the second half, and that's this concept of the Colorado River Valley replacing this thing called the Tri-State, which I know what it is. You know what it is. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, nobody in Huntington Beach or, Washington County, Utah, or Seattle, they have no clue what that means, okay? But they know what the Colorado River is. And so we're working with...
branding? So kind of branding?
Oh, it's absolutely branding. This is tourism.
Yeah.
Okay. So
anybody, money.
Yeah, anybody who thinks that we're kind of like maxed out on tourism is very, very wrong. Oh. Okay, as we see the shift away from, we want our friends in Laughlin and over at the AV and Spirit Mountain Casino down here. We want them to continue to run vibrant, healthy operations. Come on into town, rent a room, throw the dice, slot machines, whatever your thing is. Okay. We like that, but there's so much more to the tourism component. And the key are trails, hiking, ATV, four-wheelers, quads, all this kind of stuff. We have these beautiful natural resources around us. We need to maximize the opportunity we have. And the first thing we do is we redesignate the area as the Colorado River Valley. That becomes the brand. Right now, we think the working group that I'm with on this, we're kind of thinking Hoover Dam down to the Topak Bridge across I-40. Kind of that to us is the Colorado River Valley. Originally, it was from Davis Dam down to Topak, but we think that area north on Lake Mohave should be part of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the opportunities here are endless. So pretty confident we have the folks in Needles on board with this. I'm working with Clark County next week. Got some meetings up with them on that. Bullhead Chamber, Laughlin Chamber, Bullhead City.
That's money. That's
on board.
Non-tax money.
The feds have already started the change of this designation. So when you look at some of the weather forecasts, you'll no longer see rain coming to Bullhead City /Needles. It will say there's a front passing through the Colorado River Valley.
Very cool.
They are talking about this valley. Okay.
I think that realtors can help with that too, with that branding.
Yeah. And we've already got a little identifier for it. I forgot to bring one with me. What it looks like, but there's all sorts of stuff. A key component of this will be two subgroups to it. One is something called CRV trails. Okay, we're not trying to replace anybody's like the Colorado River Heritage Trail System. We love that, okay? But we want to have an inventory of all the trails from Hoover Dam all the way down to that Topak Bridge. We'll organize it under the moniker of CRV Trails. We'll do the maps. We'll do the organization. We're working with All Trails on their website and their page as an identifier because I need hikers here. I need people who ride bikes, especially during when it's cooler, because they bring money, they bring cars, they bring family members, they bring all that kind of stuff. And most of them, by the way, don't gamble. And we got that going on. The second part of it is going to be the designation of something called CRV Points of Pride up in the valley. And a great example would be a point of pride would be Davis Dam. Another one would be the Riverside Casino and Hotel, Don Laughlin's original. That is a point of pride for us, okay? Anyway, there's a number of these physical landmarks up and down the valley, okay, that can become points of pride for us. And we designate special signage for them. We get them into things like TripAdvisor and stuff like that. Yeah, we have something called the Southwest Tri-Point. I gotta do more research on that. And that is where these 3 states come together. I didn't realize it actually had a name. Okay,
I didn't either.
Nor did I. Okay. And unfortunately, the Tri-Point is in the middle of the Colorado River.
I was going to say,
is where these lines come together. But there's just so much potential for regional tourism and economic development in this valley. Okay, we need to give the valley a name.
I love it. That is so awesome.
Yeah, well,
that's great to know.
That's one of the items I ran on.
And I really think that we can help with that. I mean,
I would love it.
Absolutely. Realtors in general can help. You're at the board of realtors all the time.
I am an associate member too.
Yeah. So
and realtors, were fundamental to the campaign and my success. I appreciate the endorsement and,
I think
the
that
support.
Is a huge thing.
Yeah, and I think I'm delivering on what realtors want.
Yeah.
I'm a big guy on home ownership, okay, for sure. The only other things, I had down here, one of my priorities, improve tribal relationships. That's we have 2 major tribes in the county, the Hualapai on the north end and the Fort Mohave Indian tribe over here. The relationship between the tribes and I think the county is not good. It's poor. The relationship between the tribe and Bullhead City, disappointing. The causes need to be understood. I think it's complex. Part of my job, I see, is to repair this relationship. We respect the role of the 2 tribes. I do. My father is part Navajo. That doesn't matter, and we don't identify that way. Never have. Okay, he grew up on the Navajo reservation outside of Shiprock, New Mexico, and so I think I have a bit of an understanding of some tribal issues. I don't claim to be, tribal myself, not at all. But I think
someone that maybe can bridge the...
Yeah, a little bit. I certainly respect the roles of tribal elders. I understand who was in the valley first. I get it. Okay. And they have a role to play in the economic development and the culture of this area. The tribe brings so much to our area.
Culture.
And again, they've got their act together. They're not perfect. Nobody is, but they have their act together in terms of the services they provide to their people, their desire to preserve their culture. And I respect that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Very, very deeply, okay? And I want a better relationship with the tribe. And by the way, they have a seat on the MPO talking about traffic, Metropolitan Planning Organization. Chairman Williams has a vote, has a seat on that. So that means they're going to have a say in regional transportation planning, and they should.
For sure.
Okay, they're a major. They have a large component of land here.
Right.
Okay, and they have people that use the roads just like everybody else does. Okay,
Right.
So I really want to work on repairing that relationship. It may happen, it may not.
I love that.
MPO is on there. County Fairgrounds. We'll talk about some other thing. It's one of my. I'm not happy. It's a long story for another day.
But this year, the 2 are money and police officers.
Oh, sheriff's deputies,
Yeah.
law enforcement in general.
Yeah.
It's beyond sheriff's deputy. You're talking about jail, detention centers, juvenile hall. Okay, all this kind of stuff.
Because you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. Right?
I mean, they move to the front of the class, ahead of the medical examiner's needs, ahead of, other areas. I mean, we have mandated services we're required to give. Medical examiners, one of them, by the way. But I'm just going to tell you, when it comes to allocating dollar, we understand we have to provide certain services. But as we have excess cash going around,
wait, that's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
Excess and cash.
Yeah. But as we do these budgets, the sheriff and the courts chew up probably 3/4 of the county's general fund budget. Well, okay, I know who's at the head of the class. Understanding there are things we have to do that do not involve the sheriff.
Yes.
Okay, and the court system. There are other mandated services. We'll provide those, but I know
one thing at a time.
Who is of the greatest concern is
one thing at a time.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the airport at some point another time. That's another one for the second half of the year. We can talk more about that at a later date. County Fairgrounds, the MPO.
How long is your term?
4 years.
Okay, and looking into the future, are you thinking that you would do another term?
Sure.
Good. Because this might take more than 4 years.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I talked to I have some old attorney friends from Office Depot in South Florida, and I spoke to them last night. I was going down the list, and they almost like mentors. They're actually older than me. Hard to believe. Husband and wife team. They live in South Florida. We talk probably once a month, and they've been really good on giving me advice. And last night we were having a conversation. We were talking, and Adele got on the phone and just said, Rich, you need to cull down all these priorities. Just focus on 4 items that are long-term. The budget would not be one of those items because the budget's over on July 1st, the new budget starts, and we spend our time on other things during the year. She goes, just cull it down to 4 big items you want to focus on and push on that, understanding that other things come up, go down, come up, go down. They enter the picture. They require your attention. Decisions have to be made. We get all of that. Okay, things are going to happen, but focus on 4. Okay, and the staff and I are working on the 4 right now.
We know 2 for sure.
And that would be
the budget, but that will go away.
That's not a long-term one of the 4. Yeah,
okay.
Long-term. So beyond July.
Employment, I guess.
Yeah, I would certainly say the whole turnover situation in the county is probably a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, to focus on.
I love the branding too. The branding of CCR.
Yeah, that we agreed this
That's
morning.
That's huge. I think that will
Bonnie
really
and I
help us.
that was a long-term priority we would focus on. Davis Camp was another one.
That's kind of part of CCR. I mean, I guess CCR is this huge thing too that you'll have to break down. But
yeah, CRV. Colorado River Valley.
Well, what was I doing? CRV. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll work on that, but we'll come up with 2 more.
You have to have acronyms, right?
Yes.
Can't say the whole thing.
Yes.
CRV.
Yes.
Colorado River Valley. I love it.
Yeah, it's already started. It's already started to move. The Bullhead Area Chamber of Commerce already has the Discover Colorado River Valley website up. So if you type that into a browser, type it into a browser when we're done.
Okay.
You will immediately go to their site and you'll see immediately what I'm talking about. They're already ahead of the game.
CRV.
Yeah,
we gotta get that connected to our website.
Yeah,
too.
Discover Colorado River Valley is the website.
That's huge. I love it.
So county's going to be helping out on this. We have a meeting next Wednesday in Bullhead City at Davis Camp, of all places.
You sound very bored.
No, I'm very busy.
I'm kidding.
I'm swamped, and on top of that, I've got church, and I'm the incoming Rotary Club president for the Noontime Club in Bullhead City. I don't know enough to do. I like to stay busy.
Wow. I'm
driven. I like to stay busy.
I think we would love to have you back. Literally, like maybe in 6 months, if you want to come back.
Sure.
We should have, we're going to be doing this once a month. So
who's your next guest?
Our next guest is Bo from the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. He's good.
So absolutely.
Ask him about CRV.
I definitely
He'll go on more than I will because he's a major, he's on the drawing board of that thing.
I love it. Yeah. I think that can create huge cash for us and we need money. I mean, it's fantastic. We should focus on tourism. There's so much more money to be made there.
I could not agree more. It's jobs, it's people, it's lifestyle. It's part of tourism is part of our culture.
But we hardly advertise it.
Yeah.
I mean, we really hardly advertise it.
Well, you have a LTC up in Laughlin, and you've got the casinos do a good job publicizing it.
But that's
the problem is, that it's pretty much restricted to that Nevada portion of the valley And what we're saying is,
Go
hey,
forward.
there's some really cool trails around Needles Mountain y'all don't know about.
Christmas tree pass.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
cool.
Exactly.
The Narrows.
Yeah, it just goes on, Topaz
Gold
Gorge.
Digger's Bar.
Yeah.
I mean, Reds.
It goes
all
on.
that.
Anyway,
So cool stuff.
you're going to see myself get heavily involved in this because I'm passionate about it, in case you didn't notice. And it's important to me, and I think it's important to the people who live here. So I do like to be creative in this sense. And there you go.
I can't wait. So we'll have you back in like 6 months, and we're going to see where you're at. You're going to give us an update if you wouldn't mind coming back. I mean, I can listen to you all day long. And you have so much.
Could you convince my 4 other members of the board to listen to me all day long? Because I don't think they're going to go in that territory.
I love it. You've filled me in. I have this whole list of questions.
We never even got to this stuff, did we?
Well, actually, I looked through it, and you answered every single one of those questions in a different way. But I so appreciate you. Thank you so very much. Such an intelligent guy. It's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I like what I'm doing. I'm enjoying the assignment so far.
We're super lucky to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, this is it. Our first episode is over. Woohoo! So our next episode will be 1 month from now. So it's always the last Monday of every month is when we launch them out. And our next guest will be Bo from the Chamber of Commerce.
He's good.
Yeah, he's fantastic. So thank you for joining us, guys, and look for the next episode. Thank you so much. Rich Lettman.
Thank you.
District 2. All right. Thank you.